What are some things that you enjoy in life? And do you feel that there are some things that you enjoy that are not necessarily good for you? I know I do. Maybe I'll have a little fast food sometimes, the odd cream cake, perhaps a bottle of wine. I might even gamble occasionally. However, where do we draw the line from wanting a little of something to consuming a lot more than we really should? At what point do we stop and say to ourselves, I've had enough? In this video, we're going to talk about what happens when we overindulge, so much so that it becomes a negative habit. We're going to talk about addiction.
Analyzing the news.
So what is addiction? Put simply, addiction is a chronic condition where humans compulsively seek substance or behavior despite any harmful consequences. Some negative effects of addiction are health decline, and addiction can lead to severe physical and mental health issues, including organ damage, malnutrition, and also mental illness like depression or anxiety. Why do we do it? Addictive behaviours often cause a strain or break relationships from family or friends or loved ones due to mistrust, neglect, and conflict. There's also financial struggles because addiction can result in excessive spending on substances or activities, leading to debt, loss of savings, or even bankruptcy. Doesn't sound very appealing, does it? And there is also the social isolation effect, as addiction often causes humans to withdraw from social networks, leading to loneliness and a lack of support. Why would we be addicted to something if it's only going to cause us pain and suffering? Now, we weren't born with addiction, we become addicted. But to understand addiction, we need to seriously talk about it. Here's the problem. Someone with addiction might hide it due to feelings of shame, guilt, or fear of being judged or stigmatized. They may worry about damaging their relationships, losing their job, or facing legal consequences. If their addiction is revealed, God knows what's going to happen. Additionally, denial is common. They may not fully recognize that the extent of their problem or believe that they can handle it alone. They may be in fear of confronting or rejection from loved ones. Addiction often creates a cycle of secrecy, as admitting the issue could mean facing uncomfortable realities and giving up substances or behaviors they feel that they depend on. So what is the definition of addiction? Well, addiction is when you have a strong physical or psychological need or urge to do something or use something. It is a dependence on a substance or activity, even if you know that it causes you harm. And it can, and in most cases, it will, on your daily life. Addiction can involve substances like drugs or alcohol or behaviors like gambling or even gaming. We need to recognize that it's not the thing itself that is causing the addiction, however, the mental and emotional thing beneath it. It's the intention behind it. The root cause of addiction is multifaceted, often stemming from a combination of genetic, environmental, psychological, and social factors. Genetics can predispose individuals to addictive behaviors, while environmental factors like trauma, stress, or exposure to substances can trigger addiction also. Psychological issues such as anxiety, depression, or low self-esteem often drive individuals to seek relief those substances or through substances of these behaviors. Social influences, including peer pressure or cultural norms, also play a role. Ultimately, addiction alters the brain's chemistry, particularly the reward system, creating a dependency that perpetuates this cycle. Addressing these root causes requires understanding and tackling these interconnected factors. Addiction is a lot more complicated than we may think. The addiction usually starts with something until it becomes a habit. A habit is a regular behavior or routine performed subconsciously, often triggered by specific cue and reinforced through repetition. So what are habits? Habits are formed through a cycle called the habit loop, which consists of 3 components. Number 1 is cue, which means it's the trigger promoting the behavior or prompting the behavior, either way. Then there's number 2, a routine, which is the behavior itself. And then there's 3, a reward. The positive outcome reinforces the habit. For example, feeling stressed, that's your cue, may lead to snacking, which is your routine, and then for comfort, you get the reward. Repeatedly completing this cycle strengthens neuron pathways in the brain, making the behavior automatic over time. Habits can be beneficial or harmful and are shaped by consistency and the rewards they provide. It is important to know that addiction affects the brain's reward system, creating intense cravings. And the brain's reward system is a complex network of structure, including the prefrontal cortex. This regulates pleasure, motivation, and reinforcement. It basically releases a thing called dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter associated with feelings of pleasure and reward. And when we engage in activities that are essential for our survival, like eating or social bonding, this system encourages repetition of these behaviors by associating them with positive feelings. That's really interesting. However, addiction substances or behaviors hijack the reward system, flooding it with excessive dopamine. And over time, this rewiring reduces sensitivity, leading to dependency as individuals seek to replace the intense pleasure repeatedly. This will often lead to a cycle of use, withdrawal, and relapse. This addiction creates physical dependency, and this occurs when the body adapts to the substance, causing withdrawal symptoms when stopped. There are also psychological dependencies, and this involves emotional, mental, and reliance on the substance or behavior. So what's the root of addiction? Again, it could be something genetic, like your genetic environment, like trauma, or even stress can contribute to addiction. Over time, addiction changes the brain's structure, making it harder to control behavior. However, there is light at the end of the tunnel. We can turn it around, though it's not going to be easy. It's important to remember that denial is common, recognizing that they have a problem, though we have to remember that the addiction is not a moral failing, but a treatable medical condition. It can be corrected. So how do we do it? How can we overcome this addiction? Firstly, we need to acknowledge the problem. The first step is admitting there is an issue, and this isn't easy for us to do. However, once we admit that there is a problem, then we need to speak to some sort of professional help. For example, there's therapists, counsellors, addiction specialists who can provide guidance and support. We should build a support system around us, like family and friends, or support groups like AA or NA. All these types of things are crucial, and you can find tons of support online. From there, we should set realistic goals. Recovery is a process, not a one-time event. From there, we need to identify triggers and learn what situations, emotions, and people around us that create and lead us to these cravings. We should then develop a coping mechanism and coping skills by replacing unhealthy habits with positive activities like exercise or hobbies. It's important to detoxify safely. For physical addictions, medical supervision is usually needed as well. We can engage in therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is CBT. I'll do a video on that. It's very interesting. And motivational interviewing can be affected too. And if something's affected, it's effective. In some cases, a person who suffers with addiction may need a counsellor or medication. Some addictions like opiates or nicotine may benefit from medical assistance and treatment. But it is vital that a person continues to stay committed because relapses can happen. But don't define failure. They should keep moving forward. Recovery is a journey, and each step brings you closer to freedom from addiction. As long as you've got that in mind and you stay focused, everything will be all right in the end.